Show.
And co-host Marine Corps Map, coming to you on Monday and Tuesdays in Studio A, noon to 2 Eastern.
And Studio B on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern, with educational, instructional, information, and situational update, often with wonderful guests on the current landscape in the U.S. and overseas.
This is a go.
We are with you, side to side, and back to back.
Please join us on Monday through Wednesdays,
as well as other hosts and guests here on Revolution Radio.
We're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore. We said we're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore.
I'm Reverend Medium Tracy Lockwood, and I'd like to invite you to join me as I discuss life from a medium's perspective. I'll be talking about insights that I've gained through readings, with topics like your guides, angels, animal communication, past lives, our transition, and the afterlife. We'll take a deeper look at the metaphysical meanings of symbols and totems, and I'll give you some practical exercises to help you develop your own natural psychic ability. Join me on From a Medium's Perspective.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Jannie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, I'm not sure. I can't really hear the station.
Okay.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Well, it's time to stumble down the road with host Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff and co-host Jannie Vaught as they carry stones, dig holes, and wield their shovels along the way. On Revolution Radio at FreedomSlips.com. This is not a seated event. As they talk, run, stumble, carry, dig, drag, laugh, fight, sing, and pray, dance and kick and scream, and oftentimes fall. Hey, is that a stone or a buffalo check? Now, here are your hosts for the next 2 hours on carrying stones and digging holes. But I won't be there.
The hell I won't.
Hey there, you are listening to the 1 p.m. Eastern slot, and we are on Revolutionary Radio, or Revolution Radio, and we are carrying stones and digging holes radio show, and I am Bridgette, and today we have Jannie. She has finally worked her magic to be on the show and co-host, so it's just going to be her and I today, and we're going to be discussing community. We are listener supported, so we want you to go to the Revolution Radio funding page, freedomslips.com, and click the funding page and donate, and also look at the amazing heirloom seed banks that we have that you can purchase that will also support our show and other people's shows. Also, too, if you want to support Jannie and I in our work outside of the show, or help us to, get our guests on the show and help some of our guests do the work that they're doing, you can go to PayPal, and you can use consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com, consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com, and you can give us a little donation. So anyway, today, Jannie and I decided that we were going to have a discussion about community. And remember, these are experiences that we're having, and there are things that we're doing. So we're not trying to confront anyone or make anyone upset, but we're just trying to have a discussion so that we can kind of enlighten people and what we consider community to be. So, hey, Jannie.
Hey, Bridgette. Hi, everybody.
All right. So
I am not goofing off when I'm not here. I'm in permaculture school, and it's a design course. And like this morning, I woke up early and had to tend the garden, and I did farmer's market. So it's a busy time, and Bridgette covers for me very well. So thank you. I appreciate it. I'm always look forward to being on the show. It's so fun.
Yeah, well, I always like having you because, you know, we can blow 5 hours just on the phone, so we can blow through 2 hours. No problem. So, you know, talking about community, so Jannie, in her area where she lives, she moved to a town where there wasn't a whole lot of conscious community going on, let's call it that, you know, in the food movement. And she started a farmer's market so that people would be encouraged. And she also, part of her community activity of creating community is also supporting the seed bank that she started. Do you want to talk about both of those things in a community mindset?
Yeah. First of all, I'm a gardener, and I love that. And I love community, and I love to share. And being from a smaller town, everybody can kind of sequester themselves in their own homes. And then once the gardening thing kind of happened, it really got revved up. And I really started sharing and, you know, just visiting with my neighbors. Basically, I wanted to learn this area about their soils and what they grew. And it kind of grew. And then we went through a huge drought in 11, and I started standing on the corner with my rainwater barrel, and that really got me encouraged to really more connect deeply with my ranching neighbors. It's big ranching country, farming country, because people were coming up and saying, I'm having to sell all my cattle because I have no water. And so we started discussing rainwater collection, which just kept leading to a bigger circle. And so being a lover of seeds and the guilds of seeds, they're groups of families in seeds, I decided to approach my local library, and with the approval of their board and with the guidelines of Seed Savers, and with a lot of help, and we established this is our 3rd year of a seed library, and you get to go in. It's all by donation. There's no money on this. And you can, with your library card, get out 3 packages of seeds a month per week. We don't really care. If you're getting seeds, it's good. And what's been wonderful is that the massive amount of native seeds, blue stem, plants, trees, flowers, all grown here are coming back in. It took a couple years to really get the flow going. And I have loaded that seed library 4 times this short amount of spring. And people are coming up, oh, I'm growing the carrots from the seed library. I'm growing this, I'm growing that. It is so wonderful. And it's not about me getting a good feeling. It is about that challenge Greg gave us about seeds. It's like, work yourself out of a business. Is that people have their own seeds, and they're growing their own, and they're contributing. And it is a wonderful way to live. That's how we should live. And then the farmers market was started with a woman who was our city. She worked as kind of a city management developer, and she had a real vision for a little farmers market. So we started that, and we were standing there looking today, and I think we're on our 6th season. And it's small. There, as long as you stay within your cottage industry for canned goods and jellies and things like that. Requirements, we're all good, and it is so fun. People just come to hang out. They bring music, they just want to talk. We tell chicken stories, we ask, it's just gardening. It is a wonderful Saturday, and people look forward to it. They just come up to hang out. You know, they might buy something. So what is community? You know, and I was looking at how I've seen community, and so I always have to go back to the origins. And for me, that's the soil. And there are communities in our soil, our mycorrhizomes, our bacteria, our fungi are all in communities. And I started seeing, as I started healing my soils and healing myself and bringing my property back into, now our property is a Texas wildlands prairie, taken me 8 years, but it's full of native plants, flowers, grasses, and plus my own fruit trees and nut trees and things we have here. So I started seeing as these guilds, communities of like plants. I never had plantain or mullein grow on this property. It was nothing but grass and weeds. Now there is none of that. It's all been forced out, and I have plantain and bluebonnets and wildflowers and mints, and it's just amazing to see, if you put some effort into the natural community, how fast it responds. I never planted a plantain, and I am covered with plantain. And I knew when I saw these plants, volunteer. I'm sure the seeds have been held in the soil for a long time. See them come up. I knew that there was a change had happened. And as this happens from the inside out, it's an inside job, right? I see my community opening up. We now have a small festival, a rock stacking festival, an earth festival, which I do a restoration of tree class. We have more natural restaurants. We have a juice bar. We have all kinds of really amazing things happen, and I'm even working on community food. Having small growing areas to get people involved for growing for each other. So what does our community look like? And I had to let go of what I thought community was, because I have lived, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s and 90s, so I went through all that radical movement, and I went through all those communities and communes and changes and peace, love, and I dig all that. But I also saw a slip away, and that the communities, again, people went back in and got more secluded. So what do our communities look like now? And I've had to let go of my idea of what community looks like and be open to what possibly the new communities look like, because we're talking on a new community right now, aren't we? We're communicating this way through another way of community, which is fraught with problems of untruths, of ego, but it's also sincere people who really just want to connect, and this is a wonderful way to connect. So that's my little 2 cents how I got started. When I approached Bridgette, I was like, I really want to talk about community. What is it? What does it look like now? Where has it been? Where's it going? Right? Where's it going, Bridgette, for you?
Well, one of the things that I've, I'm like you, anytime I can get my hands in dirt and deal with seeds and learn more from other people who, have a lot more information than I have, I always feel like super grateful and honored. And I see how humans are making communities, and they're not really I've been on over like 27 communities over the last 15 years. I've done ashrams, I've done biodynamics, I've done some permaculture, I've done this, I've done that. I've done some, accidentally ended up on some really crazy communities. And a lot of them, kind of want to isolate themselves. And I think a lot of the people are missing the whole natural community experience. A lot of these communities are not growing food. They're not kind of working with the soils and plants. They're still buying a lot of things outside of their community, which they could 100% grow everything that they could possibly need and make, sustainably. And then, we were talking about this the other day, like the word sustainable is almost the same as community. Community is where everything is taken care of, in a natural order by the community, for the earth and the land. And sustainability is not bringing anything in, but working with what you have, what's being offered by the land, or what you've planted into the land, to not have to drive your car anywhere, to utilize gas. So, anytime people start talking about sustainability as well, if you drive a vehicle with fuel, you're not sustainable. You're
Right.
just,
Yeah.
you're not. And you can move to as sustainable as possible, but that requires that you work in a community. And I probably really didn't understand a lot of community. When I was in a lot of these communities, I could tell you all the things that I didn't like about it, very few things that I did like about it. Why I have moved out in my life wanting to create a full-scale biodynamic farm and, retool combat veterans in the future, because I want to put all the things that I think are really positive into my community, and maybe start something that people can actually look at, as a resource, to come on and take a look at what we have going on. And like I said, I don't really know everything, but the more that I work with plants and soil, the more that I understand community, because, you have, okay, so the three basic needs, in order to grow anything, are water first. And water is a community, like if you go into the ocean, that water is a massive community, right? And they were saying like whales, I was watching this thing, whales heal oceans. They were thinking like whales, why leave, creel and all this other stuff for the whales? Why not just overfish? The whales don't add anything. And now scientists are starting to understand that whales are like number one most important part of the community of the ocean, because their poo-poo goes out and makes these huge algae plumes, right, which actually heals the ocean and creates oxygen and does all these amazing things. So the ocean, the water, the community of the ocean couldn't live, it couldn't sustain itself, right? It couldn't be sustainable without like the component of the whales. And then the whales can't be part of the community if they don't have anything to eat. And some fish only eat algae. Some fish only eat algae plumes. There are whales that, move through those kinds of algae plumes and siphon off all the important microbial masses into their bodies. So when we talk about communities and we look at water, water is its own community. It depends on where the water comes from and what communities are in it, because nutrient can be considered a community, part of the community. So then you have number two, you have aeration of the soil, which is the number two most important thing that soil needs in order to grow. And so mulch and things like this and giving the microbes in the soil stuff to eat so that they can move around and break it down and make more of a humus, which is the aeration type soil. And then through that, they create the nutrient, which is the third component needed for soil and to be able to grow anything. So you have all these different things that have their own isolated communities, but together they make like a full community. They make a full sustainable system. And so when we look at the human component, sometimes when I look at community, sometimes the human component is kind of working in a saboteur or an all me kind of a thing. What am I getting out of this? Instead of, in a sustainable community, it's all of it gives everything it has and takes equally at the same time. Some plants, take this nutrient. Well, these plants, we plant with them, actually put that nutrient back into the soil, right? So it's like a symbiotic like relationship. And I think sometimes humans, we get into like a host parasite thing, where we're the parasite of the of the community, which is the host.
Yeah.
And so we have to move away. And you and I had the reason why we were going to talk about communities. We had a whole conversation about how we were raised and how we were taught, and that, we don't go anywhere even without a flower. You always go with a gift, and you're always, giving. And one of the components, of the Red Road in ceremony is that you give away, There's times where you go to ceremony or you go to gatherings or you go to the communities and you put your blanket out and you give away that which, no longer serves you, but it finds its way. And so as people walk by, they pick up things and they move along. And then you may go to somebody else's blanket and you may find something that you've been needing.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So that way it's shared and it's given and it's taken in an equal, in an equitable way, without a lot of money and him-hawing around or anything like that. So there's a story, and it's a Cherokee story, and it was actually in a book that I read about Cherokee medicine. And Janie's, she's got Cherokee in her junk in her trunk. She's got some some Cherokee in there.
That's my grandma.
Yeah. And so the thing is, the story goes that when the white man, came to the Americas, the animals had contracts with the native people, and that they only took what they needed, and only during times where they weren't producing crops. If they had a lot of crops and they had plenty of food to eat, they didn't hunt the animals, right? And they also did it in a different way. They approached the animal tribes, right? Because the animals, like the deer, are their own tribe. They're considered their own people, their own community. And they would approach them in a sacred way and say, look, we need to feed our people. Here's an offering. Thank you so much for getting back to us. We'll return tomorrow. And one deer the next day would isolate itself and come forward and be waiting for the people, and it gave its life in a sacred way to help the people. But this was a contract that was made between the native people and the animal races, right? And the community of these animals, because they're, considered people too. They're considered conscious, and that, you approach them in the right way. Well, when the white man came, and other, races that were consumers, they started massacring and slaughtering and murdering these animals and taking way too much, totally unnecessary and unneeded, and taking it in a violent way. And so the story says that the deer were particularly really peeved. They were really, really angry. And so so the bear said, we're kind of peeved off too. So they go to the creator, they go to the council, and they say, look, we didn't come to this earth experience, to do this. And these people over here, we just don't really like them. They're not living in a sacred way. They're not participating in the community. They're not fulfilling the agreements and the contracts. They don't even care about that. They're not even looking at it. So the creator and the council said, well, what do you want to do about it? And they said, well, we don't know. So they left for a while, the deer and the bear and all the other mammals, and they got together and had their own meetings and discussed what the appropriate action would be. And the appropriate action was that they came back to the creator and the council, and they said, hey, we decided that we want to curse those who are doing this with a disease that will make them move slower and slower so that they can't lift a weapon to come and kill us. And so what they cursed upon the white race was rheumatism and all diseases of rheumatism, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and different kinds of diseases. And I suspect that it's probably branched out now into diseases like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, as a way to help stop the unnecessary taking. And so this talks about the community. And when you start to give, and I've noticed this from people, especially when I tell them these kinds of stories and they're really sick, they get really mad at me that they were cursed, because all they do is go and they take and take. And people will go to the, and I'm not pointing a finger. I'm just saying, a lot of people I know and I've seen, they'll go to the grocery store and they will buy up all this meat, and they will, and then they will put it in their freezer or in their refrigerator, and then it goes bad. They don't even use it and they throw it away. Or it gets freezer burn, and eventually down the road they throw it away. And that's taking too much. You're involved with the with the murder and the mistreatment of the cow community, the cow people. And so when you start getting these kinds of diseases that you get that are painful, you can't walk, you can't get out of bed, that maybe you need to kind of change to more of a giving. So I always tell people, regardless if you feel like it or not, maybe you should find some organization that you can volunteer at. Go to the Humane Society, walk the homeless dogs, once a week. Go down to the VA and see what you can do for the veterans. And then what happens is people start to heal a little bit, right? Because now they're in this giving, right? And they're not in the taking. And then that's where the community thing, I think, component starts. And so when we're not in community, we have all kinds of effects in our food and not being, sustainable and working within our communities for our diets and our food. We have serious health problems. We have mental problems. I mean, I did a show with Mwangi Hassan. He's a traditional healer from Uganda. And he said that because what he's seeing in the energy fields and with the physical fields is that all the psychopaths, people are becoming psychopaths because they no longer have a connection, to the natural world or the natural community. And that because it's all driven by money and they can go buy whatever they want instead of actually working with the community and getting what they need by the energy that they give out. And so then it's more of an equality. It's more of a symbiotic relationship. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, yes. And even with all of that, there's a balance. And that is what has really, for me, struck as watching, and even within in my own journey, is maintaining my own natural balance. Because I can give too much. I can get too involved. I can get run thin, if you will. And then I get a little bit taken advantage of, because I believe that it's worth my time and my energy to help people on a lot of different aspects. And so it's about finding that balance that I get to feed myself right and take care of myself, take care of my home and my own pets, and find great joy in that. And so what does that do? That I don't have a television. I find that as a great energy and a time thief. It steals from us. And there's nothing wrong with, like, right now we're talking, and in fact, I will so often have programs on that I like to listen to, and I'm working in the house. I'm cooking, or I'm making bread, or I'm taking care of something. It's very portable. I can carry it around, but I don't let it just totally overtake my life and my energy, because what it's done, people don't look at each other anymore. We need to look at each other, and we need to, shake hands. And even at the farmer's market, people get out of their car and they run and everybody hugs. It's so awesome. And people go, "Oh, I've missed you since last season. Oh, I'm good," and we get to reconnect, and it might be 10 minutes, it might be more. And that is really what it's all about for me, and finding that balance and that rightness so that everybody gets taken care of, and myself. And I have time for my quiet time, my reflective time, my reading, my studying, even sleep. We often will get so busy we don't allow ourselves sleep. And then there's the other whole side of it, of those who are so disconnected, but they can come back. They want to be connected. They might be a little shy at first, or a little reserved, or even go not understand, but as soon as they move a little bit forward, "Oh, what is that over there at the library? What is that on those shelves?" And pretty soon they're over there poking around in it, and they're looking at the seeds. And here's another aspect I really love, is that everything has a spirit. The stones, the soils, the microbes, the plants, the seeds, everything has a life. Everything is alive. There is no death, and there's no inertness Even if you think a stone is not alive, I can tell you stories, and I won't right now, but stones can wake up and talk to you. So Bridgette had an experience she just shared about having a dream, hearing someone talking and singing during her sleep, and finally she put it together with that she had a package coming from Greg, our friend Greg, our seed man. It's coming to her, and it's in transit. And she went, oh, that's the seed guardians. It's like the seed guard. The protectors and the guardians are making a way for that package of sacred seeds as they're in transport. And if you don't believe that things can take care of themselves, they can. Because we have guardians and protectors, beings that we cannot see with our three-dimensional human eyes, that are very, very much alive and helping us. You might call them angels. You might call them helpers or guardians or totems, whatever word you put on it. It's okay. I have no agenda about what people have names for it. To me, it's just semantics, because the truth of it is those seeds are alive. And if you ever put a seed in the ground and watch it break open and reach for the sun, and something you thought was inert and dead, and all of a sudden it's alive, well, it was never dead. It was just waiting. It was just waiting for the right conditions and the time. And maybe we are like a seed right now, our communities. Maybe we're working our way into the soil. Maybe we need a little scarification. We need to kind of get itchy and break those outer crusts off of ourselves in order to bloom and to break free and reach for the sun. I long for community like I used to have, 20 years ago, when we would meet and everybody would make food and we'd talk and we'd play guitar and we might read the Bible, we might read other scriptures, and we would what we called rap. We'd have rap sessions. We'd talk. And it would just be spontaneous. But there was always, no one was ever unfriended. No one was ever trolled. Everybody was loved. And you know what? We had to let go. We learned to let go of our egos and our own narrow identity of the world and see the bigger picture, that we're on a huge master globe, a beautiful blue planet that is a huge library and a holder of such wisdom. And we are part of that bigger community. And it takes a while to get that crust off of us oftentimes in order to say, oh yeah, you go to that church down in the corner here. Come on, let's garden. Look at this new seed. Hi, how are you doing? Give me a hug. And it doesn't matter, because we're all humans on this big planet. And every one of us one day has to make a choice, don't we? We make a choice to either be alone, or we make a choice to have friends and family, and to open the door for those that are different from us, that aren't in our perspective of what we think right and wrong is, or what you look like. And it's like going through a seed bank. Oh, look at this seed, and now look at that one, and look how tiny that one, and look what a big plant it makes. There's that thing about the mustard seed, how the smallest seed and it makes the biggest plant, and how it feeds so much, the birds, the bees, the flowers, the trees, the cattle, the earth, the microbes. It really is us finding ourselves, and we're not alone, and we're not a tiny seed. We are a part of a big community, and we all are holding hands, but somehow we have forgotten. And my thing is, what I really wanted to talk about today is just to bring this into people's consciousness and into their love space, into their heart, open up their hearts and their heart space, and to let go. It's not that I have to agree with everyone. I don't. I just have to be in a state of love and compassion, and then the magic happens, right? The seed is planted, the earth is good, and we understand about whales. And we get to hear people's stories because we don't turn off our minds. We don't turn off our curiosity. What drove us 20 years ago to sit and have rap sessions is that we were curious. We wanted to know. We wanted to hear poetry. We wanted to hear poetry slams. We wanted to hear about theater. We wanted to hear about art and color and traveling. Oh my gosh, you went to India? What was that like? I want to know every detail. You know, and that's because we were open and we weren't conceited. We used to have an old word. We called it stuck up. You know, we didn't like people who were stuck up. Maybe they are. They're stuck up somewhere. And they're unmoving. And there are those of us who are just naturally wild. Our minds are open. We know we have a great capacity to think and absorb and to love and to understand and to see beauty, and not just in something that's in a store. To me, that's not beautiful. Bridgette and I were talking about how we cannot even enter a mall because of the smell of the plastic. Once you're away from it, it just inundates you, and I can't even go in. I'll have a headache. I won't even enter. And if I have to go in and get a few items, I like breathe really heavy, and I take my little reusable shopping bag. I go immediately to the items I need. And I purchase them, and I say hello, and I don't stay long, and I exit, and I exhale, and I get home. So I have learned how to use some of these places, but I see the people inside as shutting themselves down more and more. They don't look at me when they take my money. And now some of the people, they look at me, oh, hi, yes, you always have your bag. Thank you for doing that. And they're, oh, what are you getting this for? They're curious about, oh, I said, well, I make soap and I needed a big box of baking soda or whatever I needed to go and purchase. And then the communication starts. And then the openness starts. And I've actually seen people enter these kind of stores and hug each other and be happy. So once you start, you plant a little seed and start an energy, just like the guardians that came before Bridgette's seeds that are coming. They told her, we're coming, we're singing, we're coming to you. Get ready. And often we don't recognize it, but the more we do it, the more we recognize it. It's like over and over, repetitive. My little human brain, I call it my 3D brain, often I have to read it, taste it, smell it, swallow it, do it again and again and again before all of a sudden it goes, aha, oh, I get it. And occasionally it'll be right away, but it takes me a little while often. And I allow myself that. I say, it's okay, Jannie. You aren't going to get it all the first try. You aren't getting it all the first time out. That's what walking the red road is about. You're walking it. You're just keep doing it and up and down hill and through the creeks and the rivers and finding our way. What does community feel like to everyone who's listening? What does that look like? Are we breaking out into a new community that involves Wi-Fi, that involves YouTube, that involves Freedom Slips, Revolution Radio, that involves writing? I'm a writer. I love the written word. I love books. I love the book. I love the smell of the book. I like the paper. My children all do too. I started them in a library. They will run to books and open them up and put their face in them. We love books. So what about you? What needs to be returned to you? What feels really good? What around in your community looks a little down on the heels, and it could use a little attention? And that might be an opportunity to build a community. It might be a let's read a book. Let's all gather and have cookies and tea and read a book. And we'll all get together this week on Tuesday afternoon, and we'll talk about this book. Or we'll have a little meetup about, isn't that community too? And I find that as we isolate ourselves, we get sadder. We get a little more depressed, and we want to run to the doctor. Not me personally, but I see my neighbors and my friends, getting on antidepressants. And there is a place for that, for people who have real chemical imbalances, and it's, you know, it's needed. It helps them. But just to willy-nilly hand out things like this, how about saying, hey, where's your family? You need a hug. What's wrong with finding a workplace for you, something that makes you happy? What makes you laugh? One of my teachers, I love Carol Glover, and I'm so glad, I hope we get her on the radio. She's kind of back after losing her beloved partner. And she said, if it doesn't make my heart sing, I'm not going to do it anymore. And she told me that probably 15 years ago, and it has never left me. She has given me wings, because if it doesn't make my heart sing, I need to stop and see if I need to just compost it, take it to the thrift store, pass it on, or leave it alone for a while. Maybe it'll regenerate itself. Maybe not. I might be done. The lesson might be learned. So my big question is to people, and I hope it starts a conversation and a thinking and a feeling from the deepest part of our need as humans. How are we going to repair and enliven our planet? It's by us. It's by us communicating. And us, you know, I've been a marcher and a picket carrier. I've done those radical things. And you know what? I didn't see that it did a lot of good. And I was so disappointed that our marches and our yelling did nothing but increase anxiety within us. And then we'd feel hopeless and like we couldn't do anything. And now, as I've gotten older, I see really my biggest movement, if you will, is starting a seed library. Is starting a small farmers market. And I didn't start it. I just kind of, you know, held a sign and put it out there. Who wants to show up? Come on, let's do this. And then all of a sudden people started trickling in. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be as small as sharing, learn how to knit. You want to learn how to make soap? You want to learn how to, you know, care for your dog? You want to rescue animals? How can you do that? How can we best do that? And making my heart, doing things that make my heart sing, thank you, Carol, again, has come back full circle into my life. And the guardians are here. You know, when I was trained with the Native people and my aunties and my grandmothers, when I was trained to go to the guilds or to the family of plants, I had to go out with a gift. And that might be a pinch of cornmeal, a little pinch of tobacco. It might be a penny in my pocket. It was quite often my spit that I would spit on the ground. It was my giveaway. And often you have to give your spit to the soil that it knows you. That's your DNA. And it hits the ground, and that area, that soil, knows who you are. And they're like, oh, we know your family. And then you go in and you find your main plant. That is your friend. That is your main plant. You don't pick from that plant. You don't take from that plant. You ask permission. May I enter into your guild, your family, and may I take respectfully some plants to use for myself, my family, and my healing community. And you will know either be a downturn in your heart or an upturn. You will feel happy. And then you take gently and you harvest with respect a few plants, and then you walk away and you give a gift and you say thank you. You don't take everything down. With respect. And that is my community respect for that community. Be it sage, be it plantain, be it nuts, or picking anything from my trees even. I had people showing up, pulling up to my driveway. They know I've got a lot of peaches coming on. Can I pre-buy your peaches? I'm like, no, I'd rather wait till we get to them ripe, you know, because I feel that's almost a panic in people. I need that, you know, because when they're ripe, they'll let you know. And drive up to my gate, and we'll go and we'll pick peaches. And you'll have enough to put some in your freezer or make your cobbler or whatever you want. But it's interesting that we forget often that there's enough. And that forces a lot of people, because communities took care of each other, right? within the community, there was enough. There was enough food, there was enough water, there was things stored, there was a medicine person, there was someone who could set bones, someone who could deliver a baby, someone who knew how to spin or weave or whatever. And often when we get in need, we get a little panicky and we want to take care of ourselves. We go into what I call survival mode. And there's nothing wrong. Survival mode needs to only be at that point when you're in danger, not as your complete everyday 100% life. That is too much energy going out and you've blocked people out of your life. There's a lot to think about how community runs and how it works. And how does your town work? How does even with your city ordinances and your mayor and your city council, often most of these people are there because, especially in our small towns, they want to be there. They want to improve. They want to help the citizens of their town. And in a small community, you can really call them up on their stuff really fast. Just show up at a meeting, and all you have to do is get on the roster and say something. And you don't have to be mean. You can just place a question. And often that will write itself. And they work themselves out. Because, sometimes we lose track when you have a big list of needs there, that we only see what we need and how we're going to pay for it. And we don't see the people involved, our community. And it comes down, and I'm going to shut up so Bridgette can talk, but it's a circle. It really is a circle. It's a spiraling circle, a community. And it comes in, and we stand in the center of the medicine wheel, and we look to the 4 directions or the 7, above, below, within, and we find our sacred mountain, that sacred center of who we are and who's in our community around us. Up here is my neighbor across the street, and here's my daughters, and here's my parents. Here's my friend that I garden with, and then there's their son and his kids, and then and so the spiral keeps dancing out and around, and we have a bigger community, all pulling for each other. We're all pulling for each other, even though we aren't in each other's vision every day. We build a connection like our microbes under the soil, which go all around the planet. The microbes, all of this great big web of life. So again, what does our community look like? How are we going to have a community in the next few years? Got any answers?
I don't know. I was just thinking we have about 10 minutes or so before we go to commercial. But I was just thinking, when you were talking, I had Greg when he called me yesterday, and he told me about all the seeds he sent in a package, like a massive amount of seeds. And I had this anxiety, because I was like, well, you're only supposed to send me the Navajo corn, right? That I'm supposed to be responsible for, because I have to send some of the crop back to you, for your diversity. And he's going on this list of all this stuff, that he's sending out. And I think that's why, I heard the prayers and the songs, woke up. I thought it was the mosquito buzzing me. And then it turned out to be I could hear the ancestors or the native ancestors singing, and the women and the men. And it was a really upbeat song. I wish I understood more of the songs, but, and I realized they're trying to help me, make it through this, thing that I have, like insecurity. Here's Greg who believes in me, trusts me, sending me out, his children, basically. And
yep.
And I have anxiety about the whole thing. Like, oh my God, you're sending me out too much. Like, where am I going to put it? I live in my van. And then I told him, I said, well, I might have to Johnny Appleseed some of the stuff. And he's like, well, do whatever you need to do and get it all done. And I was also thinking about, sometimes when you're a seed, I predominantly have lived in the desert, Nevada desert, and you see seeds break apart off plants and, and blow across the desert, and sometimes they have to blow really far. They'll land in a little sand hole, then the wind will pick up, and then it'll, throw it against the mountain, and then it'll throw it up the mountain, and then it finds a place to latch onto, and then the rain comes. And my life has kind of been like that since 2005, when I came out of, well, just a lot of things happened during that time period. My whole life kind of basically shut down, and I kind of had to step out and start choosing some other things. And that I wanted to go into herbal medicine. And since then, I've been like a seed on the wind. You know, I've been in my van, and that's my shell. And then it takes us all over the place. And I go to different places, and I feel it out. And nope, this is temporary. Okay, then the seed, you know, my seed and shell in the van, and we're taken someplace else, and we pick up other information. And, oh, is this the place I'm going to be planted? No. So, you know, for the last 12 years, I've been kind of a seed blowing on the wind, you know, checking out different places. And sometimes I think, you know, when you hit that area of your life where you're offered change, you know, drastic change, your whole life shuts down. And it's happening now financially. People have lost their homes, and they've lost whatever, and they've lost their families, and they've lost their retirement, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's a really beneficial time. And is it going to be comfortable? No, you know, but you have to trust that the wind is blowing you exactly where you need to be. And if it's not here, and you get blown again and blown again and blown again, eventually you're going to find that place where it's the perfect spot for you and your seed, and to be able to sprout yourself. And you're going to have all the requirements necessary. You're going to have that water community. You're going to have that microbial soil community and aeration. You're going to have the nutrient, you know, the nutrient community. You're going to have that sunlight. You're going to have all your little people that need to grow around you. And so sometimes, you know, it doesn't really feel comfortable, but you have to get out there and you have to blow in the wind.
Yes. And know when you're blowing. Sometimes you don't quite understand what's happening to you, or you feel like alone, or maybe you're the victim of something, or, you know, you have to really stop and pay attention, because sometimes it's just a part of the journey. It's a lesson that we're learning, and we're getting answers. Nothing happens instantly. We would like it to happen instantly. Since we live in an instant world now, I was talking to Chigi, one of the ladies at Farmers Market, and she said, you know, when my husband and I decided to retire here, we had a couple requirements, and she said God brought it to us. We wanted less than 5 acres. 5 acres, that's not what we could handle. We wanted a good well, and the house really wasn't all that important, but a livable home. And she said, we got just that. She goes, but the main thing is the well. Our water is wonderful. And I was looking at her, and I went, oh, this is really somebody who gets it. They understand about what they need. And I saw that they had a community, their water, their land, and their home, and themselves, with all their children, their grandchildren, she has great-grandchildren. And so I've been trying to understand that we aren't the victim often when we're alone, or, as you're describing, living in your turtle shell, traveling turtle style around, but that we're in a process in our journey in life of learning and experiencing. And it is living in a house you can't afford, driving a car that you work 2 jobs for, and eating food out of a plastic wrapper, really the benefit. If that is your happy spot, have at it. But find joy in it. And how can you improve that? But don't put us down because we don't live the life that you do.
Well, and the
you know
other
what
thing,
I mean?
Yeah. So we have just a couple of minutes, but one of the things nowadays, you know, since this will be 12 years in August since I've been living in and out of my car, you know, traveling coast to coast. And, you know, at first it was tough because I had brain cancer, and I was healing a lot of the issues. And so I did have a lot of woundedness. But nowadays it's like, I freaking love living in my van, because it's like an isolation chamber. You know, when I go in there, I know I'm safe. I know my white steel buffalo is watching out for us and me and my dog.
Right.
And I can look out the windows and see what the sky is doing, and I can see the moonlight if it's real bright, and I can wake up in the middle of the night and go out and see the grandmother moon full and just be, wow, this is so gorgeous and it's so beautiful. And sometimes I feel like I'm the only person on the planet in a good way. You know, like I'm experiencing stuff. I can smell things. I can feel things, you know, much differently. And now when I go into houses, I feel restrained. I feel tightened. You know what I mean? I feel caged.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
so now I'm getting more and more wild because I'm rewilding myself, right? Because of the
Yeah, I've been
all
rewilding
the
myself for
training.
my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so it's
First
so
thing I do when I touch clothes is I gotta know if it's nylon or if it's synthetic. I can't do synthetic. I have a few that are some blends, but what I have found is that I have my body now has a reaction to synthetic fabrics, and well, there's another community. You know, all people who like synthetics. You know, they dig them. They cooperate with them. They live harmoniously with them. But for some of us, I don't live in that community, and I'm going to start using that word.
yeah. So,
Are we
okay,
done?
we're going to commercial. We'll be right back.
Okay.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Join me weekdays for my new show, Tell Chris Joe. It's going to be a problem show brought to you live from Kensington. Thursdays, I'm dealing with hot topics, heated debate, what's new around the world, and ring-ins to discuss listeners' problems and offering considered and heartfelt solutions. So join me, Chris Hart, for Tell Chris Joe. Stop what you're doing, grab a cup of tea, and coming live from Kensington. Relax, let me entertain you with a coffee bar online. Listeners' very personal problems. So that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. See you there. It's going to be lots of fun.
This is Barbara DeLong, host of Nightlight Radio, inviting you to join me on a cosmic journey, exploring a metaphysical montage of spiritual material, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between, including spiritual readings for those who seek enlightenment. Let Nightlight provide you with equal measure of light, love and laughter, insight, wisdom, and inspiration. Monday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern, right here on Studio B, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey, everybody. This is, let me turn my volume up. You are listening to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes with Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff and Jannie Vaught. We are on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to Revolution Radio and look at their website and look under Studio A under Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can see like a mini bio there and information about our show. While you're there, you may want to go to the funding page and maybe get yourself some heirloom seeds or make a donation, since we are listener supported 100%. I am a little less vocal today because I have chemtrail crud again. So I'm just listening to Jannie as well. She's awesome and always has lots of information to talk about. We were talking about community this week, and I was thinking about after, we went to commercial and stuff. So back when I was doing online TV, I had a TV show with Project Camelot TV Network and a few other ones. Somebody who I got to interview twice, which not many people ever get a chance to interview, was a Nagual named Lujan Matus. He has several books out. And I remember one time whenever you talk to him, because he's operating at such a high frequency, you get major activations. And I remember one time we were talking, I think he was living in Cambodia at the time. And he was talking about how, when we're not paying attention to the world, and it can also be kind of like that whole quantum physics idea, when you're not looking, there's infinite possibilities and anything can happen, right? So that's another community. Yeah. Or when you stop and you pause and you focus on something, right, in an awake state, then you kind of activate the multidimensional energy in it. And so I think Lenny and I talked last show about, or I've talked somewhere about it, but in my teachings with my Lakota Sioux medicine teacher, one of the things she said is that, it goes back to the flower of life pattern, the 64-dimensional, I think it's, the hedron, it has a big word, but everything has 64 layers in it. It has multiple energetic layers. And so as you're kind of activated in your communities and you become more aware, the things that you focus in on, that you focus your attention on, you get the results of that back in it. So say, for example, he was talking about how he was interested and he would walk around in Cambodia and there'd be all these monkeys, and the monkeys really wouldn't, pay attention to him if he was not paying attention to them. And he said, and there was this one moment where he actually stopped and he looked up at this monkey and stared at the monkey, and the monkey took a few minutes to turn around and look at him. And he said when their eyes met, his energy field was activated and the monkey's energy was activated. And then the monkey did things that, are supposed to not happen, because the 64 layer, whatever operational layer that Lujan's operating in, maybe he's working in that 60th layer vibrationally, he activated that 60th layer in the monkey. And so the monkey did things that the monkey's not supposed to do, right? Biologists would be like, well, monkeys don't do that. Well, They do, because Luhan's consciousness, paying attention and focusing at that one moment of potential, that one moment of possibility, pinpointing it out with intention, and then his level of activation and awareness activated that same level of awareness in that monkey. And so the monkey becomes like human, right? Because it's being seen as something else, right? So it can be that without limitation. So, when we're walking around and we've got, Wi-Fi, app up our, plugged in, and we're not activating the world around us in a conscious, higher functioning activation codes. When we stop and we're aware and we look at the plant, like the lilac bush I'm staring at outside, like I go by, there's flowers on it. They're only going to last for a couple of days. I go by and smell it as many times as I can. That's where I'm living right now. And it activates that plant, right? It's activating that plant into, wow, hey, you're noticing. And so what it does is it really starts to flower and bloom, and then it like shimmies around, and it really releases a lot of smell. And I can actually smell it on the backside of the property. I can smell it calling to me because of my awareness and working within, being part of its community and being aware of what it's doing and wanting to participate with it. And so it activates it to a higher octave. So
I think that's totally, yes, that's totally, I agree with that. I actually come into physical contact with the majority of my trees and garden every day, just by walking through it. And I will stand under my fruit trees and tell them how beautiful they are. And we know that their leaves have eyes, and they can hear, and they can see, and they're alive, and they have a frequency. And they're my allies, and they're my friends. And I'm and I have not met a person, even not a gardener, who did not get upset about losing, especially a tree or a tree they know of. There's a strong feeling, a connection that they have. And that's again, there's a community, right? My community knows me. And my seeds in my community know me. And often, let's go to the woo-woo side a little bit. Often when I let go of my seeds, I tell them that I am letting them go. You can't live with me anymore. You're going to go to some other wonderful people. And you're going to go and do what you do. And you're going to bring them happiness. And you're going to make food for them. Just as the seed package, the singing, and the guardians are bringing the seed package to you, those seeds will have a journey of their own, right?
Yeah.
What Greg is sending you.
Yeah.
He always wants responsible gardeners or farmers or growers. He wants to ensure the genetics of those seeds. And when you hold that in your hands, you can call in the people that will best take care of those seeds. Not often will you get a reply from them. I have realized that. But even maybe 2 or 3 years later, I see seeds come back in that were from that original giveaway. And then it's like, oh, there you are. You lived, you reproduced, and now you're back here ready to go to someone else. It's really, some people that's a little hard, that's a little woo-woo for them to realize that seeds and elementals have their own journey, but they do. They absolutely do. Like
and
water and wind and air and all of it.
Yeah, and the information and data, because they're like a hard drive on a computer. And when you plant them, you plug them in an app, then in the soil, and if they do reproduce, they've picked up a whole level of information. They've picked up your information. They've picked up the animals' information in the area. They've picked up the information of the water, the soil. What the cosmos was doing in that particular area, the activation of above. And then, when they're given to somebody else, like when I do the Navajo seeds, we're going to do them in Sacramento. I think we're going to do a little women's ceremony too. I'm actually going to wear a skirt, which probably would shock people. But
I have a ceremony skirt too. Yeah. Often it just goes over my shorts.
Yeah, well, that's the hard part. They're like, you're not dressed like a woman, it's a woman's ceremony. You're like, I don't own a skirt.
Yeah, just put that skirt over your shorts and just keep going. Yeah.
I know, yeah, exactly. The Velcro skirt. I just Velcro it on and Velcro it off as needed.
That's right. Elastic.
Yeah, so one of the things I thought about was, where I'm going in Sacramento is my family, which found me from my dad's mother's side. I didn't know that they existed. So like 6 weeks ago, they found me. I ended up going last week up there, had a really great time with them. And then we're going to plant these, the Navajo corn specifically on their land to heal their land. And so I'm going to be bringing the corn there for the gift from Greg, and then I'll return back this corn, back some of it to him so that he can replant it for biodiversity to pick up this information. So I'm thinking about doing a little ceremony there on the land and having a bunch of women there from my family and their friends, some really fun people that they have, women of all cultures, and wear skirts and be barefoot, and we'll hand plant the corn and give it this really beautiful start with healing and coming together and working together, that also we can implant into this corn. So it'll give it this really beautiful addition of community, of women coming together from all races, to plant the corn. So to activate maybe some energy in it that it needs. And then hopefully it'll grow really well, and then it'll go back to Greg, some of it, and then he'll be able to add that into his program, the hard drive of the corn that he'll plant there when it remembers that it came from his land, right? And then it'll say, oh, look what I've got now. I've got this diversity of people coming together and women coming together of different cultures now embedded in my DNA in a loving, caring way. In a tender way. So, just like a little baby in a blanket, we'll stick it in the dirt, kind of a thing. And so, So the other thing too is, when we're dealing with community, sometimes some of us don't really get along. We haven't learned, and this doesn't mean love and compassion doesn't mean be abused by people. It doesn't mean be used, and it doesn't mean be abused. If your community is not positive, your community, it doesn't seem to be what you would think that your community would bring. Staying in the community sometimes and not being treated well is not something I'm advocating. I would advocate that you leave that community, be a seed on the wind, and find where you belong that's going to be the best suited environment for you to grow, that can give you all the things that you need. So, and then that way you can put your time and energy into a better community. And then there's some of us that don't really get along with other people. And that can be really hard in a community. And in the future, I see a lot more community living, where multiple people, even 50 to 100 people, and I don't really like that whole word commune. I like the word community because I like the food-based, soil-based, water-based, that everything builds from kind of community to come together. And so we're going to have to learn how that we can work together, and sometimes we can agree to disagree and just understand each other. And like Janie was talking about earlier, how this, the midwife, we've got the woman who does the baby birthing, and we got the person over here in the community who does the herbs, and we go to them, and we got the medicine person, and we got to go to them because we got the situation over here. We have the person that, butchers the meat, and all of them have their own sacred way that that they maybe do the things that they do, and their experience has brought them to the community, and that everybody can participate in a symbiotic relationship. And I do see more communities that will need to pop up in the future. More and more people are moving towards better food I know farmers now, like just doing cattle, grass-fed cattle in California, and their businesses, like within 2 years, have just gone off the rails. They cannot even produce enough organic grass-fed beef. People are coming right to their land and buying it from them. So the answer is that we all move on more onto communities and we start growing the food ourselves. Plus, when we have a relationship with the seed, it knows us. It knows what's wrong with us. It knows how to bear fruit and medicine and change its chemical structure in order to aid us. We have a nutrient deficiency. It can help us with that. It can. It smells us. It can smell our body. It can. When we touch it and we talk to it, it can smell our breath. So it picks up all this information from us so that it actually can grow medicine that can cure us. And I believe so much in this that I wanted to start this project where we put up greenhouses and then got cell samples and even urine and stuff like that and put it around the greenhouse of people that say have pancreas cancer so that the plants could actually grow to cure the pancreas cancer. And that's a community, right? That's not me going out and raping a forest to get a medicine. That there's not enough of these plants that we can get everybody the medicine. But this is about you having a relationship to your community that it becomes your medicine on all levels.
Right.
That's what community really starts to do. It starts to cure everything. And it starts from like the beginning of our conversation. It begins with the soil.
Right. The community within the soil. Yes. Yes. And it goes all the way to the heavens, to the above, to the moon and beyond. We're all wonderful part of this great big community picture of family. And it has broken down, but I believe it can be repaired. As Greg said about the GMO corn, he said, it'll all comb itself out. It will comb out. Nature has a way of doing things. Today at Farmer's Market, I picked a lot of lettuce, and the lettuce is just really good. And, lettuce is so healing. And it is a pain reliever, and I had all this beautiful lettuce I picked yesterday, and I had it damp, and I had it refrigerated. It was all fluffy and crisp, and it's that it has red and oak leaf and all kinds of, lettuce in it. And a friend of mine walked up, and she said, "What do you have there?" And I had it laying out on a little table, but I have a frozen pad under it and a nice towel. And I flipped it open. I flipped the towel out, and this beautiful pile of lettuce was laying there, and I could see it waist up and hit her face, and she just went, "Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that." And she wasn't talking about my ability to grow it. She was looking at the essence of this lettuce, this food that was calling to her. And I said, "You want all of it?" She goes, "Oh, yes."
Give me it all.
Yeah, yes. And I got my little roll of wax paper, and I wrapped it up, and she had a little treasure. She went back to her car, and she goes, "I think I'm going to make a salad." I said, "I would eat it on my way home if it was me. Just start munching on it, And people stand at my table. I mostly herbs and greens and fruits and things like that. And I was, "Oh, here, try this. We'll be eating it." And they're all, "Don't you want to sell this?" "Well, sure, you can buy some of it, but let's eat this asparagus." So we'll be eating and snacking on stuff. And I love to see when the human, again, their spirit touches the plant, and they connect, and they get it, and they taste what it should taste like. And it is wonderful. I get chilly bumps, goosebumps all over when I get to experience that with someone. It's like the tomatoes. She ate them all before she even got to the car, and they were her mother. And her mother looked at her, and she said, "Well, you didn't even save me one." She didn't even walk 50 feet. She had to turn around and buy more tomatoes, little cherry tomatoes. And she goes, "Oh, those were so good. I didn't even get to my car." And how hungry we are for our friends. for our human friends, our family friends, and our plant friends, and our spirit friends. We're hungry for them because we've been a little bit hijacked and disconnected from them, and we want to be reconnected. And to me, as I say, community, I don't see people, we tried that years ago, living in the commune, and that didn't work. You know, some I did, and then we'd take 2 days to figure out how to dig the outhouse, you know. And it was silly. And it was an ideal that we wanted to go back to. But it really didn't work. A lot of us flipped way the other way and went totally marketed. But a lot of us held our ideals and our belief systems around that. But it didn't work. So what does work? What works as a community? I think we're going to see, as people shift and change and grow, and we more and more connect, that we will see a new community, how to be together, but have our own sacredness and our own sovereignty as an individual. If you ever get into a community situation where you are banned from having friends, you are controlled on who you communicate with, that's called a cult. And you need to get out as fast as you can, because that happens too. So it's being aware of the negative side of community also, you know, because there are those who would like to take your energy. And there's not very nice people out there. So, you know, and it's not that we have to be on guard all the time, but be smart, be aware, and find your own way with it. I like living in my own house, my own small house. I like having my own garden, but I like going to my friend's house. I like them come on over here. And to me, that is my community. And I have communities online, which I never wanted to do, but my daughters gave me this fancy phone and said, here. I'm not very good at it. But I've learned that there's a community there too. And when my energy goes down, I call it a downturn in my energy, I will turn it off. I will not be participating in that. Because when we participate in a negative energy, we become drained. And that is not good. And that is another one of those things of paying attention. But it all goes back to my friend, you know, today, just not an hour ago, and getting that lettuce, just a whiff of that lettuce, that energy that popped up, and that smell and the freshness and the mist that came off of it was really why I garden and why I even trundle my little self down there. That don't make any money. I hardly the gas in the car to drive down there. That isn't the point. The point is that I have community, and I encourage people to grow and eat good food and to just come and talk and visit. And they'll come down. I got some of the most beautiful flower seeds from a man who grows for his wife. That's a special thing for her. And it's important. It's important to grow and do things for someone special. Because when they get that plant or those flowers, they feel it. They know it. They know it was grown for them and it was done with love.
Yeah, well,
that's my little love talk about it. Because that's another community that's been abused and used and not taken very good care of. So I do this because I love them. I love my plants. I love the seeds. I love my family, my soil. You know, it's all very simple.
Yeah, I'm feeling those seeds coming this week from Greg in the mail. You know, they're preparing me. You know, they're choosing to come to me, and they have faith in me that I can, you know, do what I need to do. Which, you know, even though I've seen a lot of doody, you know, my life, sometimes it always catches me off guard when you have, like, you know, otherworldly experiences around things. Right. You just are kind of like, wow, that's a next level kind of a thing. So I remember watching this video, I don't know how long back, Paul Stamets. He's the, you know, mushroom expert. And I think he's like in Oregon or Washington or something like that. But he was talking about how there's scientific proof now, because these mushrooms are like an anomaly kind of a thing on Earth, right? And because they spore out, But he said there's scientific proof now that their mushrooms are sporing out and leaving the atmosphere of the earth and going into outer space. Like, they have scientific proof this is happening. And he said, if you think about that, in 1 billion years, these spores might make it to like Mars and then start to re-terraform, planets. Right? I know.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool woo, man. Yeah.
That is a woo-woo. Anyway, so, you think about, like, what are you, like, maybe we can have an impact on heaven. Not so much that, what is above will be below, but what is below and what we're creating as a creationist, what our impact can be from Earth and this experience to heaven, right? Or to other planets, right? And so not so much relying on all that faith, but actually doing to actually also help create change in the paradigm or the experience or the computer hard drive of heaven, and adding to it, just like these mushroom spores are, leaving the planet and going into the atmosphere and eventually will go somewhere else. That, maybe what we do and how our work is with the plants and the soil and the seeds in our community, maybe that adds information and data and to the heaven experience. And excuse me, it was about 5 years ago, and this really dawned on me, that when I was born into what I call here is the everything.
Right.
And then there's the creator, who's the creator of the everything. And that the creator created nature and this planet experience to teach us what creation is and how to co-create, right, as co-creators in this experience. That whole idea kind of changed because there's, in a lot of these communities, people are trying to manifest whatever they want to manifest, a house on the hill, the perfect relationship, money, all these different things, but they miss the whole point of the education of this world in the everything and how it was designed, and all of the beings that came here from all these different worlds in order to teach us how to have community together, how to work together, and how to co-create, like on just a basic foundation of working with the soil. I mean, I look at, like, if my seed makes it in the soil and I've done everything right to that soil, and that seed comes up and it bears fruit, I mean, to me, that is like the highest extension of co-creation. And if that plant can actually change the soil and be happy there and have a good life, and enjoy itself, and then also help to build more community and plants around it. So that's, to me, is like co-creation. But I used to be caught up in all that other stuff, wanting a perfect mate and wanting money and wanting all these different things, and it didn't really lead me to actually have to learn how to co-create in a very physical way. We're going back to dealing with the soil and everything in it, and I love this. When I was going to biodynamics school, Harold Hoven, when we were a really brilliant guy, he was handpicked by the International Biodynamic Association to teach biodynamic farming at Steiner College. Steiner College closed in May 2016. It was a gem, really sad. But it was there like 30 years. It was an unbelievable place of learning and education and hands-on experience and learning about, you as a co-creator, basically. But one of the things he said with the compost was that we are creating, these type of, we do special biodynamic compost, they're standing compost. And he said, what we're doing is we're trying to put together something very exciting for the microbes that are way down under there that don't want to participate on the top level anymore. And so they've gone way, way, way down there because there isn't really anything exciting for them up here on the top layer. And so we put all this stuff together in these composts so we can entice them and conjure them to want to work with us, want to work with the stuff that we have for them, this nice, yummy, tasty food meal, right? And then as they come into it, then they create a full circle organism, right? The whole thing becomes a living organism, the freestanding biodynamic compost. And only if you're co-creating, only if you're in a place of true co-creation would you care how your compost was going to live and if it was a living being or not. And you would, people buy all these, I go to people's, because I do a lot of urban farming, I'll go to their yards and they have these standing compost containers. And right. I laugh because I'm like, that's a joke. Number one, it's plastic. So you're putting a lot of estrogen in the soil because that's what's going to happen from the plastic and the BPA. So you try to put that compost anywhere, it's not going to go good. And it's always either really dry because they gave up on it, or it's really like not good. It's gone south and it's really mushy and it's fungy and, a lot of really bad stuff because it's lost its relationship to the earth. And it's interesting to me, like the basic, these compost companies that are making these containers don't understand the basic component that you don't have microbes in that container unless they came from the dirt that you're standing on.
Yeah, so you need to put a handful of your own soil in it.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes that doesn't even work because now you've isolated it.
That's right. Yeah.
You've isolated it. And you've isolated those beings from their families and their communities, right, that they lean on to work with. So, all these different things that we have in our environment, we have to kind of really look and consider, is it separating us from co-creation? And how do we get back to, that co-creating? How do we get back to, and we've talked about this before, our blood and our bodies are composting. We have worms and different kinds of microbes in our blood and in our body, and they clean up everything and they break it all down. And then it goes back into our system and can be, put back into the metabolic systems as nutrient. And so if we don't have microbes in our system, we don't have all these microbes because we are the dirt and the dirt is us, at least our biosuits, right? There's a really important thing here that goes on with the soil and our biosuits because they're the same. My teacher Bobido used to say that our blood is crystal, and so that's why we have this relationship to water, because water is liquid crystal. Our blood is liquid crystal. And then our bodies are composting completely, 100%. Our organs completely break down when they're regenerated, and there's a whole new organ that's created in its place. So we're like compost breaking down. So we don't have a relationship with the microbes in the soil. We don't have a relationship with the compost. We're not really going to understand how our own bodies work. And we're not going to have the microbes we need in order to keep helping to regenerate us. We're going to get sick. We're going to be diseased like we are now. We're going to have a lot of sterility issues where we don't have any proper bacteria. We don't have any proper microbes in our system. And so it's kind of interesting how it all, just like you said in the beginning of this talk, it all comes back to the soil. What the heck is going on with the soil under your feet is what the heck is going on in your community inside your body, and how that relates to your health, your longevity, your happiness, and all those emotional things, because it relates to how your hormonal processes are going to work as well.
I agree completely. And it all comes back to, it can be one person in a small town or a large town that starts regenerating. And all these aspects we've been talking about, body, mind, and spirit. And they start the regeneration, and they don't have to be loud or public about it. What happens is it's like a stone in the water, and the waves come out. And the waves come out. And pretty soon people are feeling it. And they see it. And it really is important that we don't maybe see that what we're doing as being a bigger part of the picture But it really is, because it's the small things. It's the microbes. It's the microbes in the soil. And maybe we're just one little microbe, and we get it. And we start doing a regenerative of our property, our soils, ourselves, and we have a longing in our heart to have friends and family come and join us. And it doesn't have to be that you join their politics. I keep all of that away. Or their religious spirituality beliefs. I keep that all away. Everybody is an individual, and they're sovereign, and they have a right to those things. And but it comes with just doing a small thing and letting those waves go out. Because we don't often see what we're doing, and we don't see the impact of what we're doing, but we are making an impact in the smallest thing. Helping somebody out of a car, buying them a coffee, making sure there's a food bank or a seed library, or knocking on my neighbor's door. I haven't seen you in several days. Are you okay? Sure, I'm fine. My husband's a little under the weather. You haven't seen. Oh, okay. Can I do anything for you? Well, no. I'm going to the store. You need anything to pick up? They often will say no. But often, I'll say, do you need some juice or, something like that? And I'll, for a small, couple bucks, you can make a big impact in your, again, community. I don't want to wear out the word, but it really is. It's just personal care. And again, I'd like to come back. We've hit lots of wonderful topics on this because community isn't just a community building where people have a function. Those are nice. That's nice. The VFW hall or, the gathering of the library or even a local bar, wherever you gather, is community, and it's important. But it really is about the feelings that we carry while we're there and how we're touching one another. Because, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We just don't. And we might need those people, and they may need us. And it's nice that we might have some kind of an acknowledgement for one another, even farther, a relationship, a friendship, that I care about you, and it's all those things combined that make us a community, right? A bigger community, a city, a town, and often people that in really big cities, can you make a small community within your building? Are you in a high-rise? Are you on the 15th floor? How about the people above and below you? Can you send energy and prayers in a good way? Never send prayers at anything to harm or to inhibit anyone. Always do it in a good way. And even if someone is in trouble or they're doing maybe naughty stuff, we tell you that will shine a light on it. And you don't have to, hurt yourself or overdo yourself. It can just be a matter of when you're getting ready in the morning, may their blessings of the Great Spirit be all around me, above, below, within, to the right and left. It's a beauty way prayer, which I do a lot. It's a woman's Hopi beauty way prayer. And may my words be beautiful. And there's a big challenge right there in that prayer, in that acknowledgement. And because I always thought it was how I used words, maybe in writing or with other people, but it really is about how I use words on myself, with myself, to myself. What kind of words am I using with me? And that changes a lot because don't hate yourself. Don't use your words against yourself. Don't use your love against yourself. Love yourself. And that sounds really simplistic, but it's not. Tell yourself every day, God, you are so awesome. You are so beautiful. Oh my gosh. You're just the most wonderful thing in the world. And you start believing it. And it's not an ego thing. It's about as much care as you pour out around you, pour into you. Right?
Yeah,
because we don't have anybody else but us. Who wants to be around us if you're sour or you're that rotten compost in that plastic barrel?
Yeah.
You don't want to be that.
I was thinking we talked about this, I don't know, a couple days ago, I think, when Like 3 or 4 years ago, I was helping to caretake a ceremonial area here in Nevada for the winter, and one became one of my really good friends. Though I don't see him much, I feel him more. And he's a friend of mine who is half. I call him a young medicine man, but he's a half Paiute, half Washoe. And one of the things we did that whole winter, when he came to live on the land, was, he needed to kind of do some healing work, and all we did was pray. And he taught me one of the most simplest prayers of changing. And so sometimes, it's hard to fake it. I call it fake it until you make it, where, you tell yourself nice things. But sometimes it's like nice to have a prayer too. Like, if I'm having a conflict with the soil, or I'm having a conflict with, say, the chemtrails really get me going, because the last couple of years I've had a lot of respiratory stuff from a lot of the chemtrails are super bad in Nevada. Or I'm having a conflict with another person, and he would just teach me simply to just say, Creator, may I have a change of heart, may my heart change, which is like saying, hey, can you give me the information I'm missing? Can you show me and bring to me what I need to see in order to resolve this conflict? Creator, can you help me to change my mind in a good way? And then actually, and then you can pray for other people too. I mean, not in a self-righteous way. If you feel like they're really stuck, sometimes it's good to ask people permission, before you do pray for them. But you could say, hey, Creator, I know this person's like in a bad way, and, can you help them to have a change of heart? Can you help them to have a change of mind? And can you align their good heart and their changed heart and their good mind and their changed mind together, to help them to, be stable on the road? And so sometimes, maybe this other component we got to add in towards the end is adding in your God. Like, do you believe in Buddha? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in heaven? Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Do you believe in the Creator? What is it that you believe in? And maybe you need to bring that component of your community back into your community, so that you have somebody.
Yes to all the above.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes to all the above. I believe in all that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I pray to Buddha. Sometimes I pray to Creator. Sometimes I pray to, but
do we have time for a quick story? You know me,
yes,
I love stories. I have some great stories. Okay.
You have great
so
stories.
I had 2 ladies, and we were out on Vision Quest, and we were up in the Arizona Strip, and we had hiked into the Salt Canyon. It's just amazing up there. And I had been told to stop now and go up high and set your spots up. And we'd only gone about 3.5, 4 miles in. So we'd gone up, and it was very nice, and we were up, and there was a lot of old cliffs, and, because we were packing water. And they tell you, when you take your own water, that's heavy. So I got everybody situated. They'd gone through all their training. They were in their spots. And that night was the night that the big UFO came over Phoenix. And we were out there under the stars and the moon, and we started seeing these little UFOs. I mean, they were like all over. I mean, they were like zooming over us, and they were heading toward Phoenix. They were just like a freeway of them. And I cannot say I saw the big one. I did not personally see the big UFO that went over. And Wendy Wilson, who was in Vision Quest that time from New York, she starts saying, oh, Buddha, oh, Mary, oh, Jesus, oh, Allah. Oh, I mean, she named everybody. I go, what are you doing? She goes, I'm covering all the bases because I don't think I want to go with them. And she was just like the list you were making. She was covering all the bases, And I said, oh, you're so smart. And it was a very effective Vision Quest. I mean, we got told to stop and go up on this high ridge when a and we got a huge flood came in. I mean, we were under these rock outcroppings that was sheeting over us like a waterfall. We were up under there. We were safe. We were dry. Our camps were safe. It was sheeting over us. And unfortunately, up in the slot canyons where you can't get out, which was only a few miles more, we were headed for the slots. And I got told, no, stop and go up high now. Not knowing. And people lost their lives in that slot canyon that night. They were drowned because they couldn't get out. A flash flood came down. And, it's little stories like that. It's tragic as it is. When that happens to you and you go, okay, I'm going to listen. Okay, everybody, we have to stop now, and we're going to go up there. And we don't go, beat ourselves up, or we didn't get to finish. That's not what we planned. No, it's not what it's about. And you might get to see UFOs, because we probably wouldn't have seen them down in the slots, because we were up kind of in the open area. And that is my questing time that I worked with the Ant Nation. I did 3 days meditating with the Ant Nation, and they become a wonderful lesson learner for me. And in fact, my logo was ants crawling in a spiral for many years. Other than that, and the UFOs was spectacular, and hearing Wendy use every name for God and some I never knew. That's my story. We never know how in these small communities, even when we do spiritual work, we don't know how it's all going to turn out, or how these experiences affect each other through the years of our lives, unto the ends of our lives. And to me, that's the bigger picture of community. I have not talked to these women in years, and I just wish them well, but I know they're well. I know that God, Spirit, and all the words that Wendy used, holds them and keeps them safe and keeps them on their journey, even with all of our mistakes. And just like our little thing, we fall down, we cry, but we get up and we keep shoveling and hauling rocks. We just keep doing it. And that is, to me, that is community. And I don't know what our community will look like in the future. I have no big crystal ball that comes in and shows me or gives me a detail. That's not part of my journey. I do it by faith. I just get up every day and put on my dirty garden clothes and my shoes, and I hit the door. And in faith, knowing that whatever I'm doing is for the higher good, right? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about being an individual in a bigger picture, in a massive, large population on a big blue planet, that we work for the higher good, period. And we don't have to put all the names to it.
Yeah,
the higher good for ourselves, and higher good for the earth, and the higher good for our families, and everything we've been talking about. We come out with that intention, and we don't have to always look at the end of the matter. We don't always have to have a bottom line, do we?
Yeah. Well, and the thing, some days, that's the key, is the good. Do we feel like we're doing good? Or do we feel like we're in the good? Those are keys on us knowing where we're at that moment. Some days, like I get so much anxiety and I have so much stress going on because I'm very much kind of in the 3D world. I'm doing a lot of consulting. We do a lot of work on people and animals, and I have to continue to learn how to communicate as effectively as I can in the third D world. And, I do use a lot of prayer and a lot of ceremony, but some days the only thing that I can rely on is going out and digging weeds out of someone's garden bed. I don't mind doing hard labor. And some days I relish in it. Like, just give me a shovel. Let me go out to your garden bed. Oh, you're going to be gone all day? Perfect. And I'm in there shoveling and pulling out the weeds. And those are some of my favorite days because my mind can just erase itself. And I'm just there with my
Yeah.
shovel, and I'm just there pulling the weeds out of the soil, and I'm getting ready to clean the garden bed. And those are the best days I have, and I'm totally dirty. I have dirt in my mouth and my teeth and in my fingers. But I feel like at the end of that day, like I've cleared myself. I feel like I'm back in good standing with myself, and I feel like I'm stronger and healthier in my place in the world. And so, a lot of people can sit and meditate. I've never been able to do that. And so I use walking meditation, which is gardening. I just clear the
Right.
slate, I clear everything, and I just focus in on the ground and the land and the plants and see what's going on, right? And seeing what my contribution in that moment is going to be and getting it done.
Yes. Yeah. Work is fantastic. Physical work is my soul's journey. I'm seriously. I can do more in my internal landscape by working in my external landscape. You know what I mean? And I just fall into a rhythm of the heartbeat of the planet and the breath and the wind. And I love it when I'm dirty. I was born that way. I have a daughter that's like that. We called her Grubber. Because I don't care where summer was, she'd find some dirt. And there would always be a little stain on her shirt. And I'm the same way. And, maybe I don't get in all the circles. But it doesn't matter, because I have realized that I'm of that tribe. And when we get to the end of this show, I want to share a little thing from Barefoot 5 that I have written on the front of my journal. So let me know when I have time to share that. It'll only take a few minutes.
Okay, yeah, because I think it goes at like 56, the show ends. So you've got like about 5 minutes.
Okay, let me do this.
Right.
It's Barefoot 5 put this out, and I have it written on the front of one of my journals. I'm a writer. I'm with the dirty mouth girls, the ones with bare feet, brilliant minds, and messy hair, wild hearts and feisty spirits, the ones who aren't afraid to speak up and to live for doing what they've been told is impossible. Aho.
Girl.
That pretty well describes you, my friend Bridgette, and many, many of my sisters in the world, and myself and my own children. We are those feisty spirits that aren't afraid to speak up and to do the things that we've been told are impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One, yeah, I always think, even if the world, sometimes I have anxiety about like if we're going to be able to turn this paradigm or not. I think eventually it will, but sometimes I think maybe not in my lifetime. But the thing is that I can focus in is I can change my paradigm on the land, in the dirt that I'm on and I'm standing in. And to me, sometimes that's all that matters, that I refocus my attention off all of it and just focus my attention to one spot, put on my dirty grubber clothes and go out and get some dirt on me, get some on me.
Right. Yes. And, yeah, that's good.
And even battling weeds all day is like, for me, like a perfect day well spent.
Yeah, my chickens love my weeds. My weeds, they get buckets of called out-of-place plants. I don't use my negatively. I have some weeds I really don't like, the really thorny, icky ones, especially ones who have invasively come into my area or into our country. But they all go, when they see me out working, they're plucking and waiting for that bucket of the impossible green plant that just got planted in the wrong place to come to them. And they just love it, especially if there's a lot of grass.
Yeah. So
I really like the grass.
I just want to talk about something that was really cute, which is community. Anyway, I think it was yesterday I was talking to Jannie on the phone, and she was out in her little, habitat. And they have one of their favorite chickens, Ping. She hatched a pong. And so she
hatched a pong. Yes.
So she hatched an egg, and they call the baby Pong. Anyway, so Janie's out there talking to me on the phone, and she's probably in the little chicken house or wherever little Pong is. And you can tell Pong loves Janie because all you can hear is beep, 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 beep.
Oh, yes. So, yeah.
Pong was just peeping away, and just the cutest thing. I mean, you could just tell. You could just, over the phone, even though Janie and I were having a conversation about, life in general, you could just tell that Pong was like loving Janie up and telling her wonderful things and how much she loves her and all this other stuff. And I could totally get that over the phone. And it was like, that's for me, like the coolest thing ever. When you've put yourself into a community where, the little baby chicken hatches and looks up at you with reverence and trust and love and faith, and talks to you and communicates to you. There's nothing like that. You can't fake.
Oh, yeah, yes. It's spectacular. It really is. She's a surprise. One of our cockerels went broody, and our rooster is a black silky, I rescued. He is wonderful. He's Casanova. We love him. He's just a precious. He's not a mean rooster. He's very gentle. So our Pong was hatched, and we knew she was broody, and we were waiting. And so this little chicken, this little bitty, she's no bigger than a ping pong ball. Her egg was no bigger than a ping pong ball. And she's got silky feet and little tiny feathers on her little black legs with yellow toes. And she's gray and gold, and she's precious.
All right, that's the end of our show.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Come on.
Bye-bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed, people working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined at the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human being. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing our